And before proceeding into the session, for people who don't know, Dr. Balaji sir is HOD of Community Medicine at Arunai Medical College. He did his UG at Salem Medical College and PG at MMC. He occupied various positions in teaching at various colleges, including our own Tagore Medical College. He has published several articles and books, especially for NEET, PG, and entrance preparations. And personally speaking, I must say he's the most coolest and jovial professor you can always look up to. And we miss you back here in college, sir. The stage is all yours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Patiman. Thank you, madam. Very good evening to one and all. Very good evening to one and all. It's a great pleasure to have you all on this great evening. Hope there is a rain in Chennai also. Here also some rainy evening here. I first of all thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interact with our students. I think I've just planned the session for next 45 minutes to 1 hour. The PowerPoint has got so many MCQs with the discussions also. Hopefully, it will be very useful for all the participants. In between Raghu and Parthiban, all the participants, whatever questions post in between the sessions, now you try to get the answers. You can also post the answers in the chat box. You can also switch on the mic and have some discussion. Okay, right? So before going into further this thing, I think we can all go into the session. Raghu, shall I start the session? Jamna ma'am, shall I start the session, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay then. So I'm
yes,
just thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So this is just a high topic. The topic what I am going to cover on this particular session is about the basic concepts of health. High topics, concepts of health. In the topic touch panama, there won't be any MCQs in SPM. Definitely, right? Community medicine. The concept of health and disease first lesson, then followed by epidemiology. I divide into two subtopics. One is general aspects of epidemiology and epidemiology study designs or principles of epidemiology. Then followed by statistics. Again, it is two divisions, right? General statistics and applied biostatistics. Okay, right? So these are the 5 subheadings where I'm going to discuss MCQs, then followed by a little bit of theoretical aspects also. I have just put 80 to 90 slides. I have just tried as much as possible to cover this community medicine subject, highly topics in this particular 1 hour. Okay, right? So participants, I'm just Raghu, Parthiban, am I audible clearly? If there is any technical issues, please let me know in between. Okay, right?
Yes.
So let us start with the first highlight topic. The first question or first topic is concept of health and disease. Let me just start the topic with an MCQ. That the MCQ is the following are true about physical quality of life index. This is the most common question. PQLA, hope all of you are aware about this particular question. And PQLA, this all are true about PQLA except the question choice A says that the scale for PQLA ranges from 0 to 100. And it is not dependent upon per capita GNP. One of the indicators used in PQLA is life expectancy at birth, and PQLA does not measure the economic growth. So one is the exception here. So this is the most common question in concept of health and disease. Apart from very basic theoretical aspect, this indices that is most common question is asked, right? So now let us just exclude one by one. The PQLA ranges from 0 to 100. Am I right? Yes, it is correct. It is ranging from 0 to 100. And PQLA is not dependent upon per capita income. That is also correct because PQLA will not include the income into account, right? And one of the indicators of PQLA is life expectancy at birth. No, the indicators used in PQLA is life expectancy at the age of 1. Okay, right? Here the exception is life expectancy at birth. So PQLA includes life expectancy at the age 1 because it includes infant mortality rate also. So these are all the basic differences between HDI and PQLA. I'm just going to give you the 4 common indices which is commonly asked in concept of health and disease. This is the first index, PQLA. It has got 3 indicators. One is infant mortality rate and life expectancy at the age 1, then followed by literacy, right? Here, GNP, which means gross national product income, is not taken into consideration in this PQLA. So PQLA has got 3 components. One is life expectancy at age 1, then literacy rate, then infant mortality. And it ranges from 0 to 100. 0 is worst performance, 100 is the best performance, right? For comparison, they have given this indicator, right? And similarly, another indicator commonly used in concept of health and disease lesson is Human Development Index. Human Development Index has got 3 components. Here only life expectancy at birth. Okay, right here life expectancy at the age 1. But here in HDA, this longevity is measured in terms of life expectancy at birth, the knowledge in terms of adult literacy rate and mean years of schooling, then income is included in HDA, right? So this is the difference between PQLA and HDA, right? So here you have got two MCQs and many commonly asked MCQs in these two things, right? So again, I stress on one thing: income or GDP is included only in HDA, not in PQLA, right? Moving on to the next slide. Here, some more other indices like Sullivan's index. This is a very common traditional question. I started teaching this PG question for almost last 10 years. This question is a very common traditional question, right? So where they ask Sullivan's index, nowadays even the recent textbook they don't use Sullivan's index, but this is a traditional question. I just want to give an exposure on this particular Sullivan's index. So what is Sullivan's index? Is nothing but expectation life free of disability. That is a keyword, right? Life free of disability is a keyword to define or to explain Sullivan's index, right? And quali, it is not DALY. Before DALY, we have quali. Quali is nothing but quality adjusted life years. It is nothing but years of life lived with perfect health. That is quali. Then what is DALY? DALY is usually expressed in terms of formula. DALY is nothing but YLL plus YLD. YLL is nothing but years of life lost due to premature death plus years of life lived with disability. So this index, this very important index, DALY, includes both disability, which means a person who is spending his life with disability, as well as potential life loss due to premature death, maybe because of accident or cardiovascular death, anything, right? So that's why we call it as DALY. Hopefully, overall disease burden. If you want to measure the disease burden to compare one country to another country, the most commonly used to measure or the is DALY. So DALY is nothing but disability adjusted life years. So last sentence it says that one DALY is therefore equal to 1 year of healthy life loss. So I repeat this very commonly as MCQs. So one is QLI, which includes 3 indicators. GNP is not included. HDA, here GNP is included, but here life expectancy. And next is Sullivan's index is nothing but life expectation of free of disability. Quali is nothing but life years of life lived with perfect health. Okay, and DALY is YLL plus YLD, which one DALY is equal to 1 year of healthy life loss, right? So participants, those who have joined, please kindly mute your mic. Please kindly mute your mic, my dear friends. Okay, now because it was the first question, I didn't post the question. I didn't wait for the audience to participate. Now I'm going to wait for the audience to participate, right? So please quickly answer this question. This is all going to be very simple questions. If you are aware about these questions, you will be able to answer quickly. The graphical presentations of variations in the manifestation of disease. Is it iceberg, web of causation, spectrum of disease, or pictogram? I'll wait for 5 seconds to 10 seconds for each question. The graphical presentations of variations in manifestation of disease. So here the keyword is manifestation of disease. So manifestation of disease in a particular individual is expressed in terms of mild, moderate, severe, or sometimes it starts from unrecognized disease also. So it is nothing but spectrum of disease, right? So it is not spectrum, it is not iceberg phenomenon, it is not web of causation. Pictogram is related to your diagrammatic presentation presented in statistics, right? So just a small explanation about this question. So here we have spectrum of health, which includes above the dotted line we have spectrum of health and below the dotted line spectrum of disease, right? So this is what I was trying to say. Unrecognized disease below the line, mild, moderate, severe, and death. So this is spectrum of health or spectrum of disease, right? So this is what it says that the graphical presentation of variations in manifestation of disease is measured by spectrum of disease, or it is represented by spectrum of disease, right? And web of causation, multifactorial causation, as we all know, this is the very basic of multifactorial causation. And iceberg phenomenon is nothing but a concept of representation of disease in public health, where the waterline demarcates. Above is the apparent and below is the or submerged portion is the inapparent infection, right? And pictogram is nothing but diagrammatic presentation, which is mostly done for illiterate people, and it is mentioned in statistics, right? So one MCQ, and I have given 4 answers. It is for discussion, right? So iceberg phenomenon, I repeated, iceberg phenomenon, waterline demarcates between apparent and inapparent, and web of causation, multifactorial causation, they express about multifactorial causation of disease, and spectrum of disease is the manifestation of disease in an individual, and pictogram is nothing but diagrammatic presentation for illiterates. So advanced model of epidemiological triangle, my dear student, this is very commonly asked recent question. As we all know, epidemiological triangle or epidemiological triangle, age and host and environment, right? So advanced model includes causative factor. Previously they were using agent. Instead of agent, now we are supposed to use causative factor. Then instead of just host, we are supposed to use groups or community, right? And environment, it includes physical, political, environmental, economical, social, cultural, all these factors come under environmental factor. And within the triangle, we have time. So time factor will be kept inside the triangle. This is what is the importance of advanced model of epidemiological triangle, right? And next MCQ is based on interaction of agent, host, and environment. As you all know about natural history of disease, right? Hope all of you are little bit out because this is just before the exam. I'm just going fast. Raghu and Parthiban, please let me know if I'm going fast. You can just ask me to slow down a little bit. So if you want me to cover the vast area, then this is the speed which I can go on. Okay, right? If you feel like audience also, if you feel like I'm going fast, please let me know. Am I audible, Raghu?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Right. So interaction of agent, host, and environment indicates. So we have natural history of disease. We have two phases: pre-pathogenesis phase and pathogenesis phase. Right. So in pre-pathogenesis phase, there is always an existing interaction between agent, host, and environment. Okay, right. But what happens in pathogenesis phase, where the agent enters into the human host, where your pathogenesis phase starts. So here the question says about interaction of agent, host, and environment. It indicates or it represents it is a pre-pathogenesis phase, right? And primary prevention, as you all know, the levels of prevention, 4 levels of prevention, primordial, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So primary prevention correlates with infection during. Now please, in the natural history of disease, you have the tabular column. Go to find the tabular column. You have down below. You have two important things or modes of intervention with levels of prevention, right? So in the levels of prevention, primordial and primary prevention comes under. Or the modes of intervention, health promotion, specific protection comes under primordial and primary, right? So here the question is, primary prevention correlates with intervention during or before the onset of disease, which means it is happening during pre-pathogenesis phase, right? Okay, an attribute that is associated with the key factor in this question, this is the classical definition taken directly from the part test book. So an attribute that is associated with disease, disorder, or death is called as. I'm going to wait for another 8 to 10 seconds. Please, audience, you can just post the answers in the chat box if you want. Raghu, please read the answers if the audience are posting the questions. If I go to the chat box and come back, it will take more time.
Okay, sir.
Yes, please check out the answers. An attribute that is associated with the disease, disorder, or death. Is it a cause? Is it an agent? Or is it a etiological factor or risk factor? Yes, it is.
So Vivekashri answered as C, risk etiological factor.
Yes, it is a risk factor. It is not the etiological factor. It is a risk factor, right? So etiological factor, it is not an attribute. It is a cause. It is very specific, right? If you don't know the exact cause, we will be using the word risk factor. That is a better word to define an attribute that is associated. Two important keywords in this MCQ. One is attribute, another one is associated. Because you are not sure about the cause, you are using the word association, right? So an attribute which is associated in the question, the answer is risk factor rather than etiological factor. Okay, right? The floating tip of iceberg represents a very common and very simple and easy question. I will be expecting the answer from the audience because this is a very simple and common question. The floating tip of iceberg represents the clinical case, latent infection, pre-symptomatics, or carrier. Just now I told you the waterline demarcates between two things, right? One is apparent and inapparent. So waterline above the waterline, it is called as apparent. Apparent and it is clinical cases, right? So A is the correct answer. So floating tip of the iceberg represents the clinical case. All the remaining things is subclinical, carrier, pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic, inapparent, covert, undiagnosed. See, I've used so many words. இது எல்லாமே எங்க இருக்குன்னா submerged portion. The entire idea of or entire concept of community medicine or epidemiology is to go to the community and find out this submerged portion. That is called as, this is the concept of iceberg, right? So tip, what the clinician sees is only the tip of the iceberg, right? The submerged portion கண்டுபிடிக்கிறதுக்காக community physician or epidemiologist goes to the community and does some tests. Those tests are called as screening test. So அந்த test பண்ணி they can find out the latent infection, inapparent infection, pre-symptomatic carrier, subclinical, all these things, right? So iceberg phenomenon, next question பாருங்க, iceberg phenomenon is seen in all the following diseases or in following diseases except iceberg phenomenon. As I told you, வெளியில பார்க்கும்போது dimension சின்னதா இருக்கும், but the actual dimension, if you go to the community, the dimension or the prevalence or the dimension of the disease is very huge. Especially it is more in hypertension, diabetes and mental illness, except in accident. These are all very traditional and commonly asked MCQs, right? Next, now last two important MCQs in concept of health and disease, right? The continuous oversight, the important keyword here is the continuous. Here also continuous, next definition. That's why I just put both the questions in the same slide. The continuous is not the keyword here. The important keyword in the MCQ the continuous oversight. Oversight maybe supervision, right? Oversight of all the activities to ensure that they are proceeding according to the plan. It is called as monitoring. Okay, right? Next important, same line of question. In the MCQs, in the definitions, you will get confused. Here, the second question says that the continuous scrutiny of the factors. What you are doing, you are scrutinizing the factors. Whether these factors determine the occurrence and distribution of disease, that becomes your surveillance. Okay, sir. So please be very careful in these definitions. Okay, right? Continuous oversight, monitoring part. Continuous scrutiny of the factors, because you are scrutinizing in depth, it becomes surveillance. Okay, right? Next, two common definitions. The process by which results are compared to the intended outcome or objectives. In the objectives, you frame in the objectives, you reach that it is called as your evaluation, right? Your program has reached your objectives or not. The definition is evaluation. The important keyword here is intended for with the objectives, right? So you are planning whether the objectives get the result on the card. That is the evaluation or the evaluation program, right? Next important MCQ in this surveillance area, a method of identifying the missing cases. That's very, very important. Missing cases, right? See, previous MCQ, we'll just go back to this MCQ. In the MCQ, the continuous scrutiny of the factors. What you do, you are continuously scrutinizing the factors in the community, whether these factors determine the cause or occurrence or distribution of a disease. But in spite of doing all this surveillance, sometimes you will be missing the cases. And the missing case identify we will start some sentinel surveillance sites. So a method of identifying the missing cases and thereby supplementing the already existing notifying cases is called as sentinel surveillance. These are all the very common, most commonly used MCQs, asked MCQs, repeated MCQs, where you're not supposed to make any mistakes in this area, right? So these are all the topics covered under concept of health and disease, right? So we have touched about basic indices in concept of health and disease, where HDA, PQLI, Sullivan's index, QALY, DALY, then followed by iceberg phenomenon concept, then definitions of monitoring, surveillance, sentinel surveillance, all this we are discussing concept of health and disease, right? So I am just moving on to general epidemiology. Okay, Raghu, just let me know, am I going fast? The audience, are they able to capture the discussion? I just want to assess at the end of this 10 minutes of my discussion. Am I going fast? Raghu, Parthiban, please let me know.
No, sir. It's going in a right speed, sir.
It's going fine, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you. Like general epidemiology, right? This is a very common definition which is asked in MCQ, right? The study of distribution determinants of health-related states or events. Health-related states or events. You look at the keyword part. That's what I always say, that keyword use பண்ணுவேன், but MCQ ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா stem of the question எப்பயுமே நல்லா repeated. If you read the stem of the question, you will have lot of key factors, key words in the stem of the question, right? Here in this MCQ, you will say, of course, almost all the communication past people, they will be definitely knowing the two definitions. One definition of health, another definition of epidemiology. But the thing is, who has given the definition? That's your question, right? All these scientists, epidemiologists, Parkin, W.H. Frost, McMahon, John M. Ross, all these people, they have given a lot of definitions for epidemiology. But the classical definition of epidemiology is accepted in 1988 is given by John M. Ross. See, Arumia, specific kind of words he has used. Look at these words. Distribution and determinants. Of what? Disease to solar. Right? He has used the word health-related states or events in a specific population. And Why are you doing all these things in a specific population? You are doing it in order to prevent and control the disease, right? So this is the classical definition given by John M. Last in 1988. Okay, right? Distribution determinants by John M. Last, right? Now slowly moving on to measures of morbidity. General epidemiology or more important areas in the general epidemiology where you will be asked on measures of morbidity, measures of mortality, and then followed by this one, standardization, right? So these three areas I'm just going to cover. Now I'm just going to give a little more seconds for all the participants. You will be taking 20 seconds for answering this question, right? Please go through the question carefully. You have an 100 under 5 children, ஒரு வில்லேஜ்ல அதுல வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா the coverage of measles vaccine is 60%, right? So the vaccine coverage is 60%. Following the occurrence of measles in a child, so one child has got measles when the child visited outside, 26 children developed measles, right? What is the secondary attack rate, right? Before going to all these things, my dear students, I want you to, my dear participants, I want you to know about basic definitions in infectious epidemiology, right? So அது என்னால இப்ப கவர் பண்ண முடியல, but still I used to tell my students about these definitions. Primary case, index case, and secondary case. What is index case? What is primary case? Can anyone switch on the mic and let me please answer the question, the difference between primary case and index case? Before answering this MCQ, I want any one of you to switch on the mic and let me know the difference between primary case and index case. Okay, because I'm not getting any answers from any of the participants, I'm just going to tell the answers. So primary case now, the first case which introduces the infection to the community is called as primary case. Yeah. But first case which comes to the notification regular, that is called as index case. Now here, 100 under 5 children, the coverage on the measles coverage is vaccine coverage is 60%. 60% which means the remaining 40% is not being vaccinated. Now this 40% out of 100, this 40 participants, these 40 people, 40 children in the population, they are exposed or susceptible, right? Out of these 40 children, one child has got measles when he went outside and came inside. So this first case is called as a primary case. And the old case, we have got 26 cases. So these 26 cases are secondary cases. So what will be the numerator and denominator? Can anyone answer this question now? So secondary attack rate is nothing but number of secondary cases divided by population susceptible or exposed, right? So what is the number of susceptible cases here? Total 40. And the 40 is one on the primary case part. And the one primary case will not be included in the numerator and denominator because it is a primary case, because we are dealing with only with the secondary attack rate. So yeah. So secondary attack rate, numerator how many secondary cases? 26 secondary cases. Denominator 39. So 26 by 39 into 100 is 65%. Okay, right? So 26 by 39 or exact answer 66.6, but here the nearest answer is 65%, right? So secondary attack rate formula, I'm just repeating it once again. Maybe it is there in the next slide, I guess. Next MCQ. Are you all following? I don't understand. Please follow this MCQ. These are all simple calculations, but nowadays these calculations are being avoided in many MCQs, many NEET exams also, but still just to impart the knowledge of the concept of secondary attack, I just use this question. So now, in a school with an unimmunized cohort of 100 children, where one child developed measles in Jan 1st. Following this, 35 children developed measles, out of which 3 cases happened on Jan 3rd itself, right? So now here unimmunized cohort, so total is 100. Under one child developed measles on Jan 1st, which is a primary case, and Jan 3rd alone, again 3 more cases. So 3 plus 1, this total 4 cases are primary cases. So these primary cases will be exempted from numerator and denominator. So 35 minus 3 is 32. So 32 is the exact secondary cases which happened after 2 to 3 weeks later. So 32 divided by denominator will be 96. So 32 divided by 96. So 96 this 1 plus 3 will be subtracted from 100, right? So out of total 96 susceptible or exposed population, 32 are secondary cases, right? So 32 divided by 96, you will be getting the answer 33.3. This is how you are supposed to calculate the secondary attack rate. So what is secondary attack rate? Here is a formula for secondary attack rate. Number of exposed persons developing the disease within the range of incubation period divided by total number of susceptible or exposed contacts into 100. This is the formula for secondary attack rate. The next important MCQ, theoretically asked MCQ, secondary attack rate. How much the disease is being spread from one person to another person is nothing but secondary attack rate. So it is a measure of communicability, right? Spread right? To measure the spread, it is a spread from one person to another person, which is nothing but it is a measure of communicability. So it also evaluates the effectiveness of control measures. So if your control measures are pakka, there should not be any secondary cases. So if there are more and more secondary cases, then your control measures are not good, right? So evaluating the effectiveness of control measures is very important. Use of secondary attack. So you should understand the concept of secondary attack, right? So if you understand the concept, என்ன மாதிரி problems கேட்டாலும் then you can easily answer the questions, right? And incidence, attack rate, and that incidence, as you know, the difference between incidence and attack rate, right? Incidence, the multiplying factor is 1000. Incidence is nothing but new cases, right? Attack rate is a special incidence rate where attack rate is usually expressed as a percentage, and it is usually used only during epidemic, which means when a population is exposed to a risk for a limited period of time. Or limited period of time, group of people getting exposed, and the time you use for the incidence rate is otherwise called as attack rate, which is expressed in percentage, right? Next question: if the disease is acute and of short duration of illness, either because of rapid recovery or death, what will happen to the prevalence? This is a very important applied question in general epidemiology, right? So because of the duration of illness, because of rapid recovery and death, the prevalence, what will happen to the prevalence? Will it be low or high? Just let me know. Will it be low or high? Somebody is answering in the chat. Previous MCQ again, please, sir. You want the previous MCQ? Somebody has answered high. I'll just put the previous MCQ. This one? Please note down the MCQ, or you can just take a screenshot. Okay, right? You can just calculate it later. Now, it cannot be high, my dear student. One of the students has replied as high. It cannot be high. See that clearly it says that if the disease is acute and short duration of illness, either because of rapid recovery, because short duration, rapid recovery, or patient is also dying, the prevalence will be low compared to incidence rate. So prevalence is nothing but incidence into duration. Hope all of you, because for eliciting this formula, I have just put this question. P is equal to I into D formula. Please go through this formula. P is equal to I into D. I have just put this dip here. Continuous or water flow, this is the new case, right? And here in the presence of water in the bucket or in the thing at any point of time is called as prevalence, which includes both old and new cases. But the water flow coming regularly, that is called as incidence, which is new cases, right? So prevalence is equal to incidence into duration, or incidence and new duration, right? So look at this example. Longer the duration of disease, what will happen? If the duration of the disease is old case also will get accumulated, you will also get new cases. Automatically you will be having more prevalence, right? Similarly, if the disease is acute and short duration, either because of rapid recovery or death, the prevalence will be low compared to the incidence rate. Classical example is influenza and all these things, right? So strictly speaking, sometimes these events will not have even no prevalence, okay, right? And next is measures of mortality. Crude death rate, this is the formula for crude death rate, because it is crude. Why it is called as crude? There is nothing specified here. Number of deaths by median population or total population into 1000, right? So because it is not taking anything into account crude death rate, so crude death rate cannot be used as a measure for comparing 2 or 3 districts, villages, states, countries, and in compare crude death rate cannot be used. So that's why we always say that crude death rate lacks comparability. It cannot be used for comparison, right? It's also one of the MCQ commonly asked. While just looking at this table of crude death rate from city A and city B, what is the inference? It shows that both are same, which means city A and city B both are having same crude death rate, right? This is a conclusion. But if you have this age group specific death rates, here age group specific death rates are given less than 15 to 45, city A and city B. Now, adding all these things, you will have both 100 in both city A and city B. You will be having crude death rate similar. But now, my question is about, now what is the inference compared to the previous slide? Previous slide, I had only this data. Now, we have this data of age specific death rates. Now, can you tell me the difference between city A and city B, or are they same compared to crude death rate? Now, you can just see the age specific death rates and tell me what is your inference. Which city is doing better or which city is doing worse? city A is not doing better. City A is actually doing worse because under 15-year age group children death it is more among city A compared to city B, right? So if you just compare the crude death rates alone, the crude death rates alone cannot be as a measure for comparison. So you should have specific death rate, especially age specific or gender specific or TB specific, sorry, any disease specific death rate, then you can compare the death rates among different population or different districts, right? So crude death rate lacks comparability. The MCQ is very important. That's why I'm just posing this question right now. Again, now here next slide or next now we have city A has got 40 out of 1000 in the city B 100 out of 10 out of 100. So if you keep the denominator for 1000, here 100. Now previous slide we had a conclusion about city A is doing worse than now, but now it looks different. So without denominator, you cannot come to a conclusion about the even specific death rate also. So in order to mask or in order to make these rates into comparison, we are doing a process called standardization. That process is called a standardization, right? So what is the answer for this MCQ? The major disadvantage of crude death rate is lack of comparability. It lacks comparability. Okay, right? So in order to make it comparable, you are doing a procedure called standardization. So where you have direct and indirect standardization, right? So here direct standardization where we use, you select a standard population, usually it is a national population, apply the available age specific death rates, add all the death rates, calculate the expected death rates, and find out the total, apply to the total standard population divided by the total standard population, right? This is the direct standardization. I just see this. If you want, please take the screenshot. In the 4 point, we have so many MCQs, right? The first MCQ is standardization is done to ensure comparability. First one. And second one, we have two types of standardization. One is direct standardization, another indirect standardization, right? In direct standardization, what you are doing, you have a standard population. So, and apply the age specific death rates of a particular population to the standard population and calculate the expected deaths. So now you have calculated the expected deaths now, and all the expected deaths divided by the standard population, you will get a age specific standardized death rate. So this age specific standardized death rates can be used for comparison, right? So the MCQ between direct and indirect standardization, here in direct standardization, you will be applying the age specific death rate to the standard population. But indirect standardization, you will be having the observed deaths of a particular population. That is applied to the specific population, right? So observed deaths of a standard population is applied to the particular village, especially usually done to a occupation group setting, right? So that is calculated in the formula observed deaths by expected death, which is called as SMR. SMR is standardized mortality ratio, which is nothing but observed deaths by expected deaths into 100. So the MCQ SMR is a measure of direct standardization or indirect standardization. SMR is a measure of indirect standardization. Okay, right? So best comparison of the two population, best comparison health status of two population, out of these things, crude death rate, proportional mortality, standardized mortality, specific death rate. Out of these four, standardized mortality rate or standardized death rate is most commonly used for comparison of the health status, right? And in order to complete these measures of morbidity and mortality, we have two MCQs here. So there is a PSC with 30,000 population and 120 cases of pulmonary tuberculosis. And at the end of some year, the population 30,600 where you have 30 new cases were detected and 2 cases died, right? So here apply all the concepts of morbidity and mortality. Based on this particular data, the following rates can be calculated except in data, right? So here we have new cases which means incidence can be calculated. And you are having already old existing cases also. So which means you can also calculate prevalence. So incidence is nothing but only new case, right? Prevalence is nothing but old and new cases. Prevalence is point prevalence as well as period prevalence, right? So these two can be calculated. Now the problem is with case fatality and proportional mortality. What is case fatality rate? Case fatality rate is nothing but number of deaths occurred due to a particular disease divided by or upon total number of cases due to the same disease, right? So this is nothing but case fatality. Here, can we calculate case fatality? Yes, you can calculate, because we have case death, 2 cases died, and total number of cases were 120 plus 30. So you have both numerator and denominator. You can calculate case fatality rate also, but you cannot calculate proportion mortality rate. What is needed for proportion mortality rate? I'll just go to the next slide and tell you. Okay, right? So maybe next slide I'm having the answer for all these things, right? So proportion mortality is nothing but where you will be having total number of deaths due to all causes. Then you can calculate proportion mortality rate. Now here again a problem where it includes all the concepts of measures of mortality, right? So I have chosen these particular questions in order for revision. It will be very useful for you guys, right? The median population has been given, total number of TB cases given, new TB cases TB cases death TB cases cured and discharged, and total number of deaths also it is being given. Now, which of the following is not true? Now, we'll go by choice one by one, right? Incidence can be calculated. Yes, incidence can be calculated because new cases are okay. Prevalence can be calculated. Yes, you can include both new and old cases, so prevalence can be calculated. Case fatality cannot be calculated. Proportion mortality can be calculated. What is proportion mortality? Which I told you, number of deaths due to a particular disease divided by total number of deaths due to all causes. So total number of deaths due to all causes is given. So that is also there. So proportion mortality rate can also be calculated. So D is also correct. So choice C, case fatality rate cannot be calculated. Case fatality rate can be calculated because you have number of TB cases died and total number of deaths due to all causes. So you can calculate proportion mortality as well as case fatality rate, right? So case fatality rate is also called as killing power of the disease. Most commonly asked the question MCQ represents the killing power of the disease, also called as virulence in right? I always ask my students 3 questions: infectivity, pathogenicity, and virulence. Agent related factors most commonly asked MCQ. Infectivity, ability of the infectious agent to invade is called as infectivity. Okay, right? Pathogenicity, ability of the infectious agent to cause clinical apparent illness is pathogenicity. Virulence, ability of the infectious agent to cause death, that is killing power, right? So case fatality rate is a measure of virulence, and it is most commonly used in a acute infectious disease, right? So proportional mortality rate, as I told you, number of deaths from a particular disease divided by total number of deaths due to all causes, right? And survival rate, nowadays this is also getting more in this particular area. Survival rate and total number of patients alive after 5 years by total number of patients diagnosed or treated, right? So நம்முடைய ட்ரீட்மெண்ட்ல எவ்வளவு பேர் உயிரோட இருந்தாங்க அடுத்த 5 years 10 years, that may vary, right? So that is nothing but it's a method of describing prognosis, usually used in chronic diseases, cancer diseases, cancer studies use பண்ணுவாங்க. So ரெண்டு MCQ வந்துச்சு பாருங்க. Once again, acute infection disease most commonly used is case fatality, right? And here chronic diseases, cancer studies most commonly used measure of mortality and பாத்தீங்கன்னா survival rate. Okay, right. Moving on to the epidemiological study design, right? Few seconds break for me. So now we are going to move on to epidemiological study designs. Epidemiological study designs based questions, right? In the ஒரே ஒரு MCQ you will have, in the ஒரே ஒரு slide you have lot of MCQs, my dear participants. Just look at these 2 flow charts. When the flow chart just look at this first flow chart, where here what the investigator doing, investigator assigning an exposure. Investigator is doing a intervention. Then the study design is called as experimental study, right? If the experimental study involves a random allocation, if you are performing a randomization, it is a randomized control trial. If you are not doing randomization, then it is non-randomized control trial. That's it, right? Every flow, every line you have an MCQ, right? After you just come to this side of the chart. If the investigator is not assigning an exposure, you have a comparison group. You will have the study design is analytical. Analysis na enna pa? When can you do an analytical study? You will need a comparative group. If you don't have a comparative group, how can you analyze? So, but in descriptive study, there is no comparison group. You just describe the disease occurrence in terms of time, place, and person. Time, place, and person distribution. Where you can also generate the hypothesis. So, descriptive studies, you will always generate the hypothesis, or you can say that formulation of hypothesis is done in descriptive studies. But in analytical study, you test the hypothesis. So if you want to test the hypothesis, you need a comparison group, right? So if you want a comparison group, based on the direction, you divide the You describe the study designs into case control, cohort, and cross-sectional. See, you measure the exposure and outcome at the same point in time, cross-sectional study. Going back in time, case control. Going forward, exposure to outcome, it is cohort study, right? This keyword, exposure to outcome is cohort. Outcome to exposure, case control study. Measuring the exposure and outcome at the same point in time is called as cross-section study. Now coming to this side, right? In this side, simple now, but here I just want to stress on this particular in the portion of the flowchart. Look at this. Observation studies, right? They divide into population based or individual based, where it is part that is clearly given. Ecological studies and descriptive studies, where the unit of study is population, the keyword. Unit of study is population, it is ecological study mostly, right? But unit of the study is individuals, it is mostly analytical study. But in individual based, you have two groups. Case report and case series report. Mostly we describe the occurrence of disease in a particular individual or a group of people. The case report and case series report comes under descriptive individual based observation. Descriptive individual based observation study, right? But in analytical, again here also analytical individual based observation studies, the cross-section study is otherwise called as prevalence study, where you measure the exposure and outcome at the same point in time. And case control is also called as case reference study. Case control study is also called as case reference study. Okay, right? And cohort study, as we all know, it is follow-up study, right? And here in intervention study, randomized control trial is also called as clinical trial. Okay, right? Non-randomized sometimes also called as quasi-experimental study. And other two types, field trial and community intervention trial, right? Where again, these two I used to compare this field trial and community trial with ecological study. Here, field trial, community trial, where the group of people are studied, right? Not the individuals, right? Here, individual based study, RCT and quasi experimental study, where it is individual based. Other group based comparable to ecological study, field trial and community intervention trial, right? So I have flushed so many MCQs in this particular flowchart itself, right? Next, very important MCQ area in descriptive study, right? False regarding propagated epidemic. We have so many types of epidemic, as you are aware about points epidemic, propagated epidemic, many types of epidemic. These two are commonly asked MCQs, right? False regarding propagated epidemic. Propagated epidemic, false கேக்குறான். Secondary waves will be present. Propagation என்ன அர்த்தம்? Person to person transmission, group to group transmission. You will have secondary waves. Herd immunity has no role. How can it be? Herd immunity, definitely it has got role. Person to person transmission, I told you. And person to person transmission, rapid rise, there will be a slow rise and slow fall. So, herd immunity has no role. Herd immunity has got a very big role in deciding the propagated epidemic, right? This is a very important MCQ. So, I'll tell you the 4 points. Secondary waves will be present. Herd immunity has got a major role in deciding the propagated epidemic, and then person to person transmission will be happening, and there will be a slow rise and slow fall. Okay, right? And this point source epidemic also called as single exposure. Common source common source single exposure, common source multiple exposure, right? Common source single exposure, exposure, sudden rise and sudden fall. Whatever group of people exposure to an infectious agent, but sometimes not always due to an infectious agent. Classical example, the Bhopal gas stadium, it is not an infectious agent, right? So these are all the important key words in the definitions for point source epidemic, right? So all cases occur within one incubation period because the exposure is simultaneous, right? So simultaneous curve has got only one peak, there won't be any secondary waves. So all the clustering of cases will occur within one incubation period, which is a narrow interval of time, and it is not always due to infectious agent. But propagated epidemic is clear that it is mostly due to infectious agent, because propagated person to person transmission, it is a infectious agent, right? This is the wave or the curve of actually touch x-axis touch so epidemic curve point source epidemic sudden rise and sudden fall, that's it, right? All are true regarding point source epidemic except no secondary wave is correct, occurs within a specific period of within a narrow interval of time. All cases occur abruptly and simultaneously, yes, that is also correct. Always due to infectious, right? Not always, we have concluded, right? And common source, the next important thing is multiple exposure. Multiple exposure, automatically you will have more than one wave. Multiple waves will be there, and all the cases will not happen within one incubation period. Then cases will occur beyond the range of one incubation period, and no evidence of secondary cases from the infected cases, right? So this is the wave you will be having in your wave, in your case, your 5 cases. So in the money, the cases will happen according to the exposure, right? So this is common source, multiple exposure. Next important thing is propagated epidemic. Three common points about propagated epidemic, right? Most often infectious in origin. Infectious in origin automatically it will be person to person transmission, and the curve will have slow rise and slow fall. Okay, right? And these are the classical curve representing propagated epidemic, right? And there are some other periodic fluctuations, most commonly as an MCQs, seasonal trend, cyclical trend, long term, right? Seasonal trend, as everybody knows, the most common example is measles, varicella, every year, every 6 months, based on the environmental change. So environmental factor plays an important role in seasonal trend. Okay, cyclical trend. So every 3 years, 5 years, every 5 to 7 years, or 7 to 10 years, there is what happens? There will be huge changes in the antigen, and the people also will become susceptible, and people's environments or people's susceptibility, herd immunity, everything plays a major role in cyclical trend. This is all the common MCQs, right? Cyclical trend, என்னென்ன factors decide பண்ணுதுன்னு கேட்பான், right? The long term trend are secular trend, ஒரு decade ஆகும், 2-3 decade கூட ஆகும். That is most commonly in coronary heart disease, diabetes and chronic disease, especially cancer disease. It will take long-term trend, also called a secular trend. I have given so many MCQs in this particular slide. So, which is not true reason for cyclical trend. Just now I told you, environmental condition. Environmental condition mainly decides the inner trend. Environmental condition in the trend decide periodic fluctuation, right? All the remaining three antigenic variation, build up of susceptibles and herd immunity plays a very major role in cyclical trend, right? Environmental condition plays a major role in which trend? Periodic fluctuation, right? Now the calculation of odds ratio in renal cancer. So just an example. What is the formula for odds ratio? My dear students, can anyone post the answer in the group? Odds ratio. Odds ratio formula. I'm just expecting the answer. Expecting the answer for odds ratio. What is the odds ratio formula? AD by BC. It is also called as cross product ratio, my dear participants. AD by BC. ABCD AD by BC, that is cross product ratio, which is also called as odds ratio. So here clearly it is mentioned as 30 of the 50 patients. So 30 is the A, because smokers, right? Smokers and non-smokers. So 30 of the 50 patients were smokers as compared to 10 of the 50 subjects. Subjects non-patients or controls. So in that case, you will have here 30, then 20, 30 plus 20, 50 then followed by India 10, 40 and 20. So if you do the AD by BC calculation, you will get odds ratio calculation as 6. Okay, right? So this is the simple calculation as odds ratio, which is also called as, so odds ratio is the best measure of strength of association in case control study, right? So the best measure of strength of association in relative risk in cohort study. Okay. Next MCQ. This is all the biases in cohort case control study, where you have so many biases. Case control study biases number, that is a major problem. But it can be done for rare diseases and it will yield quick results in both case control study, right? But the problem with case control study, you have so many biases, confounding bias, right? Especially if you don't do matching properly, the entire hypothesis will become, you will get a wrong causal association in case control study if you do not match it properly. So if you do not match it properly, we will develop a worst bias, which we call it as confounding bias. Confounding literal meaning confusing, right? Hypothesis confuse right? So it is defined as the bias or the factor which is associated with both exposure and disease unequally distributed. So an unequally distributed study and control group, other equally distribute that becomes a process called matching. So matching avoids confounding bias, right? All the remaining things are self-explanatory. I'm just moving on to the next slide. Memory or recall bias. Selection bias is most common thing happens in cases and controls. It can be, there are two types of matching, my dear participants. I would like to tell you: group matching and pair matching, right? So two types of matching is also available in case control. So case control study best in the crucial step in case control study is matching. Matching is a crucial step in case control study, right? So all the following are characteristics of a case control study except less prone to bias. They are more prone to bias. They have got so many bias, right? Least risk to the subject because we are not doing any intervention at all. Already outcome has already occurred in case control study, right? As I told you, case control study is also called a retrospective study, where it goes backwards from outcome to exposure. So rapid and cost effective. Multiple risk factors can be identified, right? Multiple outcomes can be possible in cohort study. So here multiple risk factors can be identified. Okay, in case control study. Look at the difference. Keywords are different. Multiple risk factors can be identified in case control. Multiple outcomes are possible in cohort study, right? Dash is defined as a process by which we select controls in such a way that they are similar to cases. Can anyone answer this question? The participants' number is decreasing. It was 27, then gradually it went down to 25, now it is only 19. So, dash is defined as a process by which we select the controls in such a way that they are similar to cases, right? It is nothing but matching, right? So, randomization is done in clinical trials, matching is done in case control, right? Standardization is a procedure done for making comparability. All these three things are MCQs which we have seen recently, last few slides before, right? So matching and confounding factor, we have discussed that in the previous slide, confounding factor, right? Now, answer this question. What is this study design? We have an example. Yes, still some of the participants are answering. I'm very happy about seeing these answers. Thank you. So what is the study design? Please take some time and then read this question, my dear students. Risk factors for carpal tunnel syndrome were studied in 1264 women compared with 1264 normal women, right? The study was conducted in some English women who developed CTS, carpal tunnel syndrome, while they were already under study for use of oral contraceptives, right? So, என்ன யூஸ் பண்ணியிருந்திருக்காங்க 23,000 women using OC pills and 23,000 women were not using OC pills. They were being followed for some point of time. On the point of time, some of the people they developed CTS. They want to find out whether this OC pills alone is a causative factor or risk factor for the development of CTS, or is there any other factor? So, they have chosen this 1264 people, those who develop CTS, and 1264 people without CTS. Choose they try to find out the risk factor. Is it the OC pill alone causing the outcome or something else? Then what is the study design here? I'll be very happy if I see the exact answer. Cohort. Is it really cohort? Prospective study design. Are you sure about it? Please read the question once again carefully. Case control. Somebody is answering it as case control. Is it case control? I think we have both cohort components as well as case control component, isn't it? Please don't get confused, my dear participants. Here in this example, we have both case control as well as cohort component, which means, what is the study design? Case control with cohort. Raghu is trying to answer. What is the case control with cohort, Raghu? That is what is called as nested case control, my dear student. That is what is called as nested case control study, right? Case control study done in already existing cohort study is called as a nested case control study. Please have a screenshot, take a screenshot about this particular slide. This is very important, right? கொஞ்சம் modified study design இதுக்கு ரொம்ப காமனா கேக்குற question nested case control study, right? Where case control study is done in a cohort study, so done as a nest, right? So it utilizes the exposure data already existing in the cohort, right? So it reduces two types of biases. One is selection bias as well as recall bias in nested case control study, right? So already existing cohort study is going on for some period of time. Suddenly some outcomes are coming. அந்த அவுட்கம்க்கு நீங்க எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ண அவுட்கம் மட்டும்தான், நீங்க எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ண நீங்க கொடுக்கப்பட்ட exposure மட்டும்தான் காசா, or is there any other positive factor existing in that population to find out பண்றீங்க? That is called as nested case control study, which is nothing but case control study done in already existing cohort study. Okay, right? So it includes cases and controls drawn from the same cohort, so it reduces the chance of selection bias. Okay, right? And types of cohort studies, three types of cohort studies. Here we have three types of cohort study represented in the image. Here you are starting from now onwards from the exposure, going on to the future and finding out the outcome is called as concurrent or also called as prospective cohort study. That's it, right? And here from now, but you are going backwards in time, but still you are starting from the exposure and tracing the outcome till date is called as retrospective, but still it is a cohort study because you are going only back in time, but starting from the exposure to outcome. That is a key factor for this retrospective cohort, right? Retrospective plain as that is case control study, my dear students. But retrospective cohort now where You go back in time, you are just going back in time only, but starting from the exposure 10 years before and tracing the population till date and finding out what is the outcome, how the outcome occurs, right? So that is called as retrospective cohort study. If you want to go further and follow up once again in future also, that is a combination of both retrospective as well as prospective, which is also called as ambidirectional, right? So look at this image once again. I just stress on this point. You are starting from now onwards from the exposure and going to the future to find out the outcome is called as prospective or concurrent cohort. But here you are starting from now onwards. Now the study is starting from now, but you are going backwards in time and tracing the exposure to the outcome till date. That is called as retrospective cohort, right? And in future, you also following now, it is a combination of both retrospective as well as prospective. We call it as ambidirectional. Okay, right? And the most important strength of association used in
question, sir, from Rabik, how to differentiate case control and retrospective cohort?
Yeah, that's what I was telling you, guys. I'm just going back to the slide. Just look at this, my dear participant. See, retrospective cohort, you are just going back in time. That's all. But going back in time 10 years before and starting point is from exposure to outcome till date. Say, for example, I can quote you with some example. There is an occupational group in a factory where there is a development of some bladder cancer in among some 10 people. You want to know that what is the exposure causing this bladder cancer in this particular group of people. So you are going backwards some 10-15 years before and trying to trace out so many people have joined in that particular factory in such and such date and following them with some sort of exposure. Say, for example, the exposure what you are expecting is some sort of dye, right? People, they will be working in the factory, in the same factory in various places, right? Manufacturing group, you select all these people and follow the exposure of dye exposure among these people in already existing records. In a follow-up, you cannot do it follow the currently, you do the follow-up from yourself. Already existing exposure recorded in the occupation setting, and the exposure is a causative factor for this development of bladder cancer on follow panina. That is called as retrospective cohort. That's it, right? But if you want to do it in further, out of this 10 people or 20 people developing bladder cancer till date, and you want to follow whether this dye is the causative factor in future also for how many people happening for next 10 years to follow panina, there's got both ambidirectional, which is called both retrospective component as well as prospective component. But case control என்ன பண்றீங்கன்னா, you select the cases, you select the controls and find out the exposure. That's all. That is what we are doing it in case control. But in the retrospective cohort, you are going backward from the outcome to the exposure and tracing from the exposure till date, right? Here there is no comparison between cases and controls like what happens in case control, right? Hope you can follow it up. You can just read this or the explanation, whatever I told you guys. Once again, listen to this audio later, and then you will find out. Okay, right? Then I will move on to the next slide. And now, relative risk. We have seen a strength of association in case control, which is called as odds ratio. Similarly, we have strength of association in cohort study, which is called as risk ratio, also called as relative risk, which is nothing but incidence of disease among exposed by incidence of disease among non-exposed, right? So the most commonly asked MCQ also. Incidence can be calculated in, very simple, incidence can only be calculated in follow-up study or cohort study. Case control, it is not possible because already outcome has occurred in case control study. Yeah, there is no question of asking new cases in case control study. But here in cohort study, there is a follow-up. Existing cases, new cases will happen, right? So new cases can be found out only in cohort study. In the question because it is a follow-up happening in cohort study. Now, what is the outcome among exposed divided by what is the outcome among non-exposed? The outcome incidence of disease among exposed by incidence among disease among non-exposed is called as relative risk, also called as risk ratio. So inga is a direct measure of strength of association, right? If the relative risk is more than 1, suggest the positive association because the numerator is more, the incidence rate among exposed more, so we can say that this many times the incidence of disease among exposed is more, so we can conclude that smoking is a causative factor for lung cancer. Say, for example, smoking causes lung cancer hypothesis. Relative risk, if you are getting as 50, 50 or 15, 5, what is the meaning of the 5 or interpretation of the 5? 5 is nothing but the 5 times more risk of developing lung cancer among smokers than non-smokers, which means that you are more closer towards a causal association, right? So anything relative risk more than 1 is a positive association. Equal to 1, no association, right? Less than 1, less than 1, no association, or you can say that less than 1 is negative association. MCQ don't go for the negative association. Less than 1 is nothing but beneficial factor. The positive factor is a beneficial factor, right? So please better not to go for relative risk less than 1. Negative association relative risk less than 1, it is a beneficial factor. The positive factor, what you are studying in this particular study design is a beneficial factor. Now, this is very important MCQ. I repeat once again, relative risk is a strength of association used in for study. Okay, right? So it is a direct method of strength of association where relative risk is equal to 1 and no association more than 1 positive association, right? An attributable and population attributable risk. In the mood risk, most commonly used risk for epidemiologist is very important. The population attributable risk is very commonly used by epidemiologists. So epidemiologist, what he is concerned as a community physician, epidemiologist is concerned with what? How much percentage of disease or how much amount of disease that can be reduced in the population if that particular factor is, or if that particular risk factor is eliminated. So the population, smoking, a group of population is stopped, how much percent of lung cancer reduces. So an epidemiologist is more concerned with population attribute. This is an MCQ, right? Rather than relative risk, I am more concerned with, or community physician or epidemiologist is more concerned with population attribute because the amount of disease that can be reduced by stopping a particular risk factor, that is population attribute risk, right? Next, very commonly asked MCQ, statistical procedure by which the participants are allocated into groups, usually called study and control group. Let me just wait for a few seconds for the answers. What is the answer for this question? You are dividing them into 2 groups, study and control group. Whether to receive or not to receive. Raghu, is a standardization. Standardization is a measure used for comparing the death rates. That is standardization. Yes, somebody has answered yes, that is randomization, but it is not standardization, right? It is randomization. Okay, right. It is randomization, right? Very commonly asked in school, randomization, right? So we have seen matching, confounding, standardization. Matching is a process which is done in case control study, right? Confounding factor is the bias or the factor which is unequally distributed among case study group and control group is called as confounding factor. Standardization is a procedure done to ensure comparability. Because the crude death rate lacks comparability. Because the crude death rate lacks comparability, we are using a procedure called standardization to ensure comparability. Okay, right? And biostatistics. Shall I continue, audience?
Yes, sir.
I have another 30 more slides to complete biostatistics. Shall we? Okay, I'm just going to discuss the mainly commonly asked MCQs in biostatistics. Okay, right? Let me just start with the basic types of data. Types of data, generally qualitative data and quantitative data. Qualitative na non-measurable data. Quantitative na measurable data. Okay, right? So in that we have 4 common types: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Right? Nominal naming part. Naming all down. So naming qualitative categories of curriculum. That is called as qualitative data. So nominal comes under qualitative. Ordinal, there is a meaningful order exists. But and the order kind of difference of size can you measure again, this is the type of qualitative data. So nominal and ordinal, they are qualitative data. Interval and ratio, they are quantitative data. Okay, right now, coming to these MCQs, please answer these MCQs. So the grading of diabetes classified as mild, moderate, and severe. Mild, moderate, and severe grading answer is ordinal. There is an order exists, right? If there is a grading presence categories, every mild, moderate, severe, satisfied, not satisfied, there is an order exists, right? But the order kind of difference in measure that is called as qualitative ordinal. Okay, right? This is ordinal data. Here, which one of the following is a scale of measurement that is being adopted for classification of disease condition as normal, mild, moderate, and severe? Quickly answer. This again ordinal. Okay. The investigator doing a research on IV drug and finds out and group divide them into HIV positive and HIV negative and what is the type of data? Group of group positive negative group it is nominal. Okay, right? Or categorical, nominal, both are same, right? Now again, very satisfied, dissatisfied represent what type of data? Again, it is ordinal data. Okay, right? And Variables mentioned the nominal scale part. Type of anemia, severity, hemoglobin, serum ferritin. Now I'll be waiting for the answers from the participants, right? Which of the following is measured on the nominal scale? Very good. A. Very good. It is type of anemia. But type of anemia is expressed in terms of nominal. Severity and mild, moderate, severe, right? Hemoglobin, serum ferritin, both are measurable data, right? It is interval data. Okay, right? And next is now broadly classified, again same part. Blood groups will be an example for what type of data. Nice question. Blood groups எப்படி சொல்லுவ? Blood group A, B, C கிடையாது, sorry, A, B, O, like this, right? So what type of data it is? It is a categorical data. Okay, right? And here again, 4 categories. Categories mean keyword கொடுத்துருக்கோம். 1, 2, 4. Class 1 is the highest, class 4 is the lowest. என்ன இருக்கும்? It is ordinal, right? What is dichotomous data? Dichotomous sometimes கேட்பான். Yes or no? இருக்கு இல்ல, positive, negative is dichotomous data. Okay, right? That is dichotomous. Also a type of nominal data. Categorical, dichotomous, nominal, almost all are same only, right? And now methods of data presentation. Now the types of data presentation. Methods of data presentation. There are 2 types now only, qualitative and quantitative. Non-measurable data, qualitative என்ன யூஸ் பண்ணாம bar diagram, pie chart, pictogram and spot are most commonly used types of data presentation for qualitative data. Similarly, for quantitative, we have histogram, frequency polygon, line diagram, scatter diagram, and all these things, and even cumulative frequency distribution, right? இதுல ரொம்ப காமனா உங்களுக்கு கேக்குற MCQ எதுனாக்கா histogram பா. Histogram is a quantitative data most commonly used பண்ணுது, and also scatter diagram, right? So I'll be putting a lot of MCQs. Please answer the following MCQs, right? I'll be waiting for the answers. Please post the answers here. The best method to show the association between height and weight, height and quantitative, weight and quantitative, then what will be the data presentation for this? Yeah. C. Very good. Very good. It is C part. Scatter diagram. Scatter diagram, it is 2 types of 2 data. See, look at the, I'm just going to this. Please take a screenshot of this particular slide. Very important. Quantitative data is very common. MCQ. One histogram, another thing is scatter diagram, right? So now look at this MCQ. You have a 2 random quantitative variables. How will you measure the association between, or will you depict the association between height and weight of a group of children? So it can be depicted by scatter diagram. Okay, right? Trends. How will you represent the trends? Trend name enna artham? Trend na measurable data. Trend vandu nee eppadi represent பண்ணுவீங்க? Trend can be represented by line diagram. Okay, this is line diagram, right? And best way to plot the change of incidence. Incidence and trend rendu onnu da, right? So incidence of disease over a period of time, again here it is line diagram. This is the mild change or applied version of some questions and asked in MCQs in biostatistics, right? And 2 variables can be plotted together. The keyword enna, 2 variable mattum illana together is important. Together enna artham? 2 random quantitative variables which can be plotted together, which means it is again scatter diagram. Okay, right? And best graphic presentation of frequency distribution of continuous variable. Continuous, again quantitative data la rendu irukku pa. Quantitative na measurable data சொன்னாலே அது ரெண்டு டைப் இருக்கு. ஒன்னு measurable, ஒன்னு discrete and continuous, right? Discrete na whole numbers இருக்கு, continuous na decimals இருக்கும், அவ்வளவுதான், right? So discrete and continuous, they are the types of quantitative data. Here the question is about frequency distribution of data gathered on continuous variable. Answers putting answers put at. What is the answer for this? Histogram. Very good. It is histogram. Right, now let us just talk about a little bit about measures of central tendency and dispersion, right? Measures of central tendency will mean, median and mode. Okay, right? Here mean will be disturbed by the presence of extreme values. Look at this extreme value. See, if you see the extreme value or the larger value towards the right side or lower value towards the left side, all of that, very simple, right? Here what will happen to the mean? Here mean will be shifted towards the right side. Here if you calculate the mean for this distribution, mean will be shifted towards the left side, so which is negative skewness. Here positive skewness. So the MCQs will be strictly asked like this. Look at this question. If the systolic BP of a group of population is 130, mean on the 130, median 140. Mean is lesser than the median. What the distribution is said to be negative skew distribution or positive skew distribution. Mean is lesser than the median. What will happen? If you don't understand the concept of skewness, I'll just go back to the slide once again. So here, larger distribution towards the right side. What will happen? Mean will be shifted towards the right side, which is called as positive skewness. here the lower value towards the left side, right? So mean will be shifted towards the left side. The mean will be lower than the median value. So here the MCQ, the question is about mean is 130, median is 140. So the distribution is yes, negative skew distribution. Thank you for the answers. Which of the following is not a measure of dispersion? For very simple question, for logical the question, but still you guys have to go through these points. Mean deviation, quartile deviation, range, standard deviation, all these things are measure of dispersion. There is nothing like median deviation, right? So look at this question once again. Which of the following is not a measure of dispersion? So there are various measures of dispersion like mean deviation, quartile deviation, range, standard deviation, all these things are there. Median deviation okay, right? And this is the concept of normal curve or Gaussian curve. Total area of the curve is 1 and bilaterally symmetrical and both the sides will not touch the x-axis. There will be huge number of infinite number of observations will be present. Mean is equal to median is equal to mode because there is no skewness. Rendu side similar mean median mode ellame onna irukum, right? Mean and average, median and centrally occurring value, mode most commonly occurring value ella centra da irukum because it is bilaterally symmetrical. So bilaterally symmetrical numbers enna irukum, mean is equal to median is equal to mode. Total area of the curve is 1, SD is 1. Okay, right? And the important key factor is the important key factor. 1 SD on either side will cover how much population? 68%. 2 SD on either side covers 95%. 3 SD on both either side covers 99%. Okay, right? So now here for a group of people where the mean is 300, SD 20. What is the correct statement? I give you a little time for you guys, and I will be finishing in another 15 minutes. Not even 15 minutes, another 10 minutes now. So we have mean part. Mean SD okay, now you are supposed to calculate the confidence interval based on these formula 1 SD, 2 SD and 3 SD. Calculate panninga what will be the answer? So 300 plus or minus 2 standard deviation. 300 plus or minus 2 into SD. 2 into SD is 2 into 20, 40. So 300 plus or minus 40. 260 this side and 340 that side. All of them are very simple. So answer is P. Okay, right? So based on this normal code, common very simple calculation, right? So mean rendu side 1 SD covers 68%, 95% na 2 SD, 99% na 3 SD, right? Now the question says that 300 plus or minus 2 into SD 300 plus 40, 300 minus 40 ranges from 260 to 340. Okay, right? And again here, this also has got simple calculation. So in here 3.05 is the mean and SD is 0.39. If the birth rates are normally distributed, which one of the following is incorrect? You can apply for one. Just calculate the 95% confidence interval for this particular thing. 95% confidence interval calculate panninga 3.05 plus or minus 2 into 0.3 and what in the range version calculate panninga. You will have a range of this side and lower range and that side, right? So on the range you calculate panninga, then you can say that and the range kullara 4 kg varga, 3 kg varga, whether 2.5 kg is normal or 2.5 kg falls outside, right? If you calculate the range of this 95% confidence interval, there somebody has answered this question. D falls outside. Very good, very good. Falls outside is the incorrect because 2.5 will fall inside. Okay, right? Thank you, Raghu, for the answer. And next question. Very simple question. Again, this is also a very simple question. Some 3,000 people are there. There are some percentage of Hindus, 10% of Muslims, some Sikhs, and some Christians and Jains. Here you are supposed to select some 300 people to analyze some sort of food habit, right? Ideal sampling technique. There are 3 commonly asked MCQs: simple random, systematic random, stratified random. Simple random is also called as lottery method. Stratified random you will be dividing them into group and group sample right? Group sample that is called as stratified, right? Systematic every 10th, every 5th, that is called systematic. These 3 are very common keywords, right? I repeat once again, simple random is also called as lottery method. Systematic is every nth total sample divided by desired sample. That is called as every nth. Okay, right? The nth is also called as sampling interval, right? If you have a sampling interval, the keyword inside is systematic sampling, right? Group குள்ளார sample பண்ணீங்கன்னா stratum அப்படின்னா group அந்த group பண்ணிட்டு then you sample inside the group again, then it becomes stratified random. So here already existing groups இருக்கு, அதிலிருந்து sample பண்ணீங்க, you will get stratified random sampling method, right? So next last 5 slides on deciding the statistical test, right? Parametric and non-parametric, ரெண்டு group of tests. There are so many statistical tests, but MCQ purpose உங்களுக்கு ரெண்டு group தெரியும், right? One is parametric, another one is non-parametric, right? So parametric tests are most commonly used for quantitative data. Parametry, measurement, right? So quantitative data is measurable data. So tests which are done for quantitative data is called as parametric test. And parametry measurement, you can calculate mean and standard deviation. So the tests which are done for parametric student T test, Z test and ANOVA, right? And this side non-parametric test most commonly done for qualitative, qualitative data most commonly done test of significance, it is chi-square test, and the outcomes are usually expressed in terms of percentage, proportions, or fractions, right? And other variants of chi-square test but McNemar's test, Fisher exact test, these are all the other types of non-parametric. At least know these types of tests are existing, right? Hope all of you know that. So in order to conclude this parametric, non-parametric conclusion, we have some 5 MCQs in further slides, right? So 2 independent data, 2 related, more than 2, right? You are supposed to ask 3 questions per. When you have a question, you are supposed to answer 3 MCQs. How many groups are there? Am I dealing with qualitative data or quantitative data, right? And if there are groups available now, whether the 2 groups are related or unrelated groups. In the 3 questions, if you answer, then you can answer this parametric and non-parametric and easily come to the conclusion, right? So I described this. Somebody has put something in the chat box. Okay. So here we have 2 independent groups, but we are dealing with qualitative chi-square test, right? And quantitative, 2 independent groups. Student t-test. Mostly student t-test, we have 2 tests, unpaired t-test and paired t-test, right? 2 related groups we have. Again, qualitative data you will get only chi-square test. McNemar's 15 or McNemar's and chi-square test are almost little bit variants of 2 related groups to pandra qualitative data, right? And quantitative data, 2 related groups, paired t-test, right? And more than 2 groups, qualitative again chi-square test, quantitative ANOVA, right? So this is very simple. We have a little more larger classification. I just made as simple as possible for the audience. In the basic first, okay, right? So I'm just going to put some of the MCQs, right? So for testing the statistical significance of difference in height is a measurable data, right? Among school children in 3 socioeconomic groups, 3 socioeconomic groups. So we have 3 groups, and we are dealing with height as a quantitative data. Now tell me what will be the answer. Outcome is quantitative data, and we have 3 groups. Now I'm just going back to this slide. Read this slide and tell me the answer, right? We have more than 2 groups. We are dealing with quantitative data. So what will be the answer? Answer will be ANOVA. Yes, very good. Answer will be ANOVA. You just saw the chat box. It is ANOVA, right? And here, now look at this. We have a comparison between 2 groups. One group consumed herbal tea, another group not consumed herbal tea. Outcome is whether they had cold or not. They had cold or not. We are dealing with 2 categorical 2 groups. Yes or no. Yes means had cold and not cold. And we are dealing with 2 groups. 2 groups unrelated, dealing with percentage. Now, percentage of people developing cold and percentage of people not developing cold. What will be the answer? What will be the test of significance? Chi-square. Very good. It is chi-square. Chi-square. And lastly, and group of people showing some percentage of improvement, that is 60% improvement compared to a standard group of 40% improvement. Here, 2 groups expressed in percentage. What will be the best test of significance here? Percentage. If the data is expressed in terms of percentage, what will be the? Yes, it is chi-square. It is chi-square. And again, you are testing a hypolipidemic drug among serum lipid groups among 2 group of people. But before and after giving a drug, before and after, what does it mean? Before and after, very important keyword to measure paired t-test. Paired t-test where they are dependent groups. 2 groups, dependent groups. Answer is A. Very good. It is paired t-test. Okay. And again, Same thing here, heights of school children. It's also the same question, just for the repetition I just put it. So here, don't get confused here with three groups, three socioeconomic groups, but the outcome is measurable data. Look at the outcome data when you are assessing the test to be done. Okay, that's very important. Do not check out the exposure. Outcome தான் எனக்கு முக்கியம். Outcome data என்னமா express பண்றீங்கன்றது தான் எனக்கு முக்கியம், right? If outcome data is expressed in qualitative or quantitative பாருங்க, then you look at for two groups or three groups, then you look for whether the groups are dependent or independent. Okay, right? For a survey in a village divided into 5 lanes, already 5 lanes are divided பண்ணிட்டாங்க. Then each lane you are going to sample randomly from each lane. What is the method of sampling here? Is it simple random? Yes, it is stratified, right? It is stratified random. Okay, right? Here, an investigator trying to find out the association between two groups among people, those who consumed iron supplement and not consumed iron supplements. Two group இருக்காங்க. அவங்களுக்கு outcome என்ன check பண்றாங்கன்னா, they are checking, they are assessing the birth weight of the newborn, right? So they are collecting the information. Now, what will be the test of significance here? Which one? We have two groups. Intake taken, that is metal intake of iron supplement, and no. Outcome is outcome data for outcome you are measuring in terms of birth weight. Birth weight is a data, measurable data, two different groups. So then you will go for unpaired t-test. So we have two types of student t-test, where student t-test la unpaired t-test and paired t-test, right? So unpaired t-test, two different groups, outcome is and groups are independent and outcome is measured in terms of quantitative. Two dependent groups, like ஒரு drug கொடுக்குறீங்க, before serum lipid levels before and after giving the drug, that is paired t-test, right? And this is the last MCQ, I guess. You are measuring the mean bone density. Mean nava enna artham? It is expressed in quantitative artham, right? Mean bone density among two groups of people. How two group dependent or independent clue illana, then you will be thinking it as independent group, and the outcome is measured in terms of mean bone density. What will be the answer here? Is it the student t-test, which is unpaired t-test, or paired t-test? Paired t-test. Unpaired. It is unpaired t-test, but here it is given as student t-test only. So just because it is given as student t-test, you cannot go for the answer paired t-test. So paired t-test, you have to have the two different. This is the same question here. Before and after giving the calcium supplement, say for example, mean bone density among 50 people before and after giving calcium supplement, the question can answer paired t-test. But here 50 people, one group, and another 50 people, another group, that just you are measuring the mean bone density among two groups. So if you are not having any clue whether they are dependent or not dependent, then you have to go for independent. The dependent clue then you can go for paired t-test. Okay, right? These are all the clues for the answers, right? Intelligence measure pandringappa. You are measuring intelligence among boys and girls. To examine the difference of means, again you are measuring in terms of mean. Mean kuduga, SD kuduga, which means you are dealing with quantitative data. But sample paranga. Sample is less than 30 na. Here you cannot go for t-test. If the sample is less than 30, go for t-test. If the sample is more than 30, go for z-test. That's the difference between this. These are all hardcore biostatistics principles, right? You don't have to go in detail about what is z-test, what is t-test. Actually, you are supposed to differentiate between t-test and z-test. Rendimet is done for quantitative, but t-test is done for the sample less than 30 and more than 30, go for z-test. Okay, right? So I have covered maximum areas in epidemiology, general epidemiology, principles of epidemiology, and also basic concepts of health, and also some concepts in general statistics and tests of significance also, right? Hopefully the session was very helpful. I'm sorry if I've gone very fast. I just want to, because the students almost going to appear for the exam, I just went off very little fast. I guess I know it is fast, but still I managed. I thank for the opportunity to Raghu and IMA members of JDN, MSN. Special thanks to once again to Abul Hassan sir, Jamna madam, and all the organizers of IMA JDN MSN network. Thanks for this opportunity, Raghu and other people. Thank you. If you can have any doubts, you can ask the question. You can switch on the mic and ask the question. I am ready to clarify. Okay. Over to Parthiban and Raghu.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very elaborate and wonderful session. Now, I sincerely request Dr. Kumar GS, sir, IMA, MSN Chairman, Tamil Nadu, to share his views on the topic. Sir, can you please unmute yourself?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Hello?
Hello, sir, you are audible, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. It was an excellent. At the same time, it was an useful for all the students. Especially thank you for the strains. You have prepared a very neat, very useful lecture. It was on behalf of our MSN, for all for MSN and JDN students. I extend my deep thanks for everybody and appreciate the participants. We will continue the same in our future affairs. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can also invite for any of my future talks in epidemiology or any topic, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, I once again call upon Dr. Jamna ma'am to share her views. Over to you, ma'am.
Sir, as usual, it was a brainstorming session. Mala penju onja madri irundhathu, sir.
How much it was useful for the audience, I don't know, madam, but I just wanted to flush as much subject as possible to the students within a short period of time.
Yes, sir, and evlo questions within such a short time with so much of points. Thank you so much, sir. I think chat box la ore or question potanga, sir, DALI and QALY patti. Maybe if you could answer that also, I think
Yes,
people would be happy.
Definitely. See, DALI, shall I answer the question now or maybe afterwards?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, you can.
Proceed, sir.
I would like to share this PPT so that they can see this. Is it visible, Raghu?
PPT? Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Just go back to those slides because it's very difficult to retain those points because so many indices are there. Just for the clarification, my dear participant, I would like to clarify two things about quali and DALI, right? The question is about quali and DALI, right? So DALI is a universally accepted, most commonly used measure of index, measure of health index to compare the overall disease burden. So DALI includes two components. See, the WHO and all the very big international agencies, they have used so many indices to compare the health status of two countries or two populations, right? அதுக்காக they have used so many indices. எவ்வளோ யூனிசெஸ் யூஸ் பண்ணி பார்த்துட்டாங்க. இப்போ வரைக்கும் the most commonly and universally accepted இண்டெக்ஸ் எதுன்னா DALI. Because it includes two major components. என்னென்ன காம்பனன்ட் நீங்க பாருங்க. So here the DALI has got two components, my dear participant. DALI-ல YLL and YLD. YLL என்னன்னா years of life lost plus YLD years of life lived with disability, right? So this composite index having both the disability taken into account as well as potential life loss, so which includes both morbidity as well as mortality. So ஒரு டிசீஸ்னாலேயோ ஆக்சிடென்ட்னாலேயோ ஒரு வியாதினாலேயோ ஒரு குரூப் ஆஃப் பீப்புள் டைங் இருக்கு இல்லையா, டிசபிலிட்டி, அது வந்து டிசபிலிட்டியால டெத் ஆகலாம், இல்ல they could die on the spot by the accident or whatever, right? So it includes both morbidity as well as the mortality factor. இது ரெண்டுமே இன்க்ளூட் பண்ற காம்போசிட் பெஸ்ட் மெஷர் எதுன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா DALI. That's why this DALI is used as a best measure of overall disease burden in a community or a population, right? So one DALI is, which means abina 1 year of healthy life lost either due to premature death or due to disability, right? So I repeat once again, DALI is a best measure for overall disease burden, right? But quality is updated recent versions. But still, common again நம்ம யூஸ் பண்றது டேலி தான். குவாலினா என்னன்னா குவாலிட்டி அட்ஜஸ்டட் லைஃப் இயர்ஸ். இங்க நம்ம டேலியில என்ன மென்ஷன் பண்றோம்? We are mentioning the morbidity and mortality. Opposite aspect. Quality adjusted life yearsலனா positive aspect. Positive aspect என்னன்னா just opposite. என்ன years of life lived with perfect health. மனிதன் இறக்காமல் and also disability இல்லாமல் எந்த வியாதி இல்லாம ஒருத்தன் பர்ஃபெக்ட் ஹெல்த்ல எத்தனை வருஷம் வாழான்னு இருக்கு இல்லையா, ரைட்? தட் இஸ் கால்ட் அஸ் குவாலி ஆர் quality adjusted life years, which is nothing but number of years of life added by medical intervention or without medical intervention, that is quali. Okay, right? So quali is the recent updated modified opposite version of DALI. Okay, right? Hope I've answered the question for the participant. If you have got any more question on this particular, I'm also ready to go in depth for this particular question. Thank you for the reminder, Dr. Jamuna madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It was simply awesome, like Jamuna told. Give me a good time. I can just all the classes which you have taken final year during COVID time, sir. And some of the questions I can just recall when you were teaching in the online. Some of the slides have been repeated here. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Raghu. Okay, I leave the session. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all the participants. Bye bye.
Parthiban?
Sir.